Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
Well, we have a problem today. I don't know if I can go on any further with John. Last night, he tried to get all three of his kids employed here at the Brad and John Show, and we had an attorney from St. Louis County come in and claim nepotism that he can't have his kids work here at the show. So, John, where do we stand at this right now?
That's a great question. I'm talking to my very attractive assistant named Miss Handcock. There's a D in there. She's not related to Dennis. And hey, sweetie, get up. Off. Okay, I'll have her stand up and then tell me what the status of it is, Brad. But interesting nepotism story. That's clearly not in the top 3 today because it has to do with St. Louis County. But maybe in B block or C block, we'll talk about it.
Crazy stuff. I mean, one judge throws him off. Another. We're talking about the St. Louis County council person who apparently hired his. Well, the interesting story is allegedly hired his stepdaughter to work for him, which violates Missouri state law, which is a John Combest kind of story, which is Missouri state law kind of thing.
That's a stretch. Yeah, go ahead.
But then they determined that the paperwork wasn't completed, so she didn't actually work for the county, so another judge reinstates him. I mean, it's this bizarre or what? And you know what the crazy thing about this is?
What's that?
If you and I had a situation where we wanted to go to court and we showed up in St. Louis County, we would maybe get a court date, maybe in November or something like that?
If we're lucky.
Right.
If we're lucky,
I mean, these guys can get 2 judges in one day. I'm going like, okay, what's going on? That's John Combest, by the way, Combest. Spell out his name, and his first name is traditional spelling, JOHN, COMBEST.com. That's the website he does every single day for 22 plus years. Puts all this interesting stuff, links to all the stories that you need to know about in the state of Missouri, but we distill it down to 3 stories. We have this guy who comes along and says important things like,
and here they are.
And he also says things like,
we're on our way to the number 1.
And he sings things like,
now on with the countdown.
And what's your name again?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we start with,
in 3rd place,
gonna be fine and dandy. Lord, it's like a BJ in the morning. That's Brad and John, Brad. That's not a reference to my assistant, Miss Handcock, who we referenced just a minute ago. And in fact, those crooning stylings are the lyrics of Dolly Parton, who happened to be in Kansas City yesterday, Brad.
Really?
We talked about this a few weeks ago. She's here promoting her Imagination Library program, in which entities subsidize, quote, free, unquote, books for students all across the world. And Missouri is participating in the program. And to help promote that, Dolly Parton bounced into Kansas City yesterday. Governor Mike Parson was there. This story, by the way, is brought to us by the Springfield News Leader. And Mike Parson said he was like, quote, a kid in a candy store, unquote, getting to meet Dolly Parton and some other various dignitaries. Peter Hershend, from Silver Dollar City was there, and others. And it was a real feel-good thing in Kansas City to celebrate the Imagination Library. And if you recall from a few weeks ago, Brad, the state is paying for the distribution, the mailing of these books. So kids 5 and under can sign up and get free books. And once a month, they'll get a book that comes in the mail, and they can read it with their parents. And it leads all the way up to about the time they start in kindergarten.
And Dolly is this like she's giving these books away?
Yeah. So she's had a foundation that she's worked with for quite a while. And I believe it's, gosh, I might get this wrong. I want to say it's Penguin Books. There's a company that does the actual publishing. I'm sure they write it off. I don't mean to be cynical, but I'm sure they write off the cost of it. And then various groups go in and pay for the distribution. Now, uniquely, Brad, according to this piece, and I should give credit to Claudette Riley from the Springfield News Leader. According to Claudette Riley, Missouri is the first state to actually allocate money for the mailing of these books to help cover the distribution costs. So essentially, Dolly uses her name. A publishing company actually publishes the book, and then other groups come in and pay for the distribution of it. And then Dolly goes around and helps promote it and lets people know that that the program's available.
You know, she really is a good person. I mean, there are people through the years that you look at and you go like, I mean, have you ever seen her get involved in any kind of controversy that you go like, I don't know about Dolly anymore? You know what I'm saying?
I haven't. No, you're right about that. She seems to have avoided a lot of that. And we talked a couple weeks ago, Brad, about the fact that I skimmed through her autobiography. I didn't read it, but I expected there to be like a bunch of anti-male girl power stuff in there. And there really wasn't. Like, she acknowledged the reality of, at the time when she was young, being a young, beautiful woman in the music industry and what she went through. And she didn't seem to carry a lot of anger or vengeance about it.
Well, I think she's one of those people that's got her head screwed on straight. You know, I wish there were more people like her in the world. She came from very humble beginnings, and she's not like, flashing her wealth or anything like that, although she's got to have some bucks in the bank, with all the ventures and all the songs. And not only that is that if you know anything about the music business, a lot of times it's not the performers that make the money, it's the people that write the music who get the royalties and things like that. And she has several songs that she's written. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, didn't she? I know she
did write that. She wrote that one, Brad.
Which one am I talking about? You don't even.
I Will Always Love You.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. For example, and she wrote that song and did it herself. But then obviously, she's making some serious royalty bucks off the fact that Whitney Houston did it, and it was in the soundtrack of The Bodyguard. And I do believe that's probably one of the best selling. I think it used to be. I don't know if it still is or not, but it was for a long time, for like 10 or 15 years. I'll have to look that up. It was the best selling movie soundtrack of all times. Now I don't know if it's been eclipsed or not, but it's just like what was the story we had? Luke Combs. There was the controversy that Luke Combs earlier this year was late last year. Fast Cars. That song Fast Cars.
Oh yeah,
that he redid.
With Tracy Chapman.
Tracy Chapman, and there was controversy. People going like, well, he's taken a song that a black woman wrote and sung, and he's making money off of it. And then it came out that Tracy Chapman made like $1 million in royalties because of the fact that Luke Combs made it a big hit again. So I don't think people are making too much fun of. Well, maybe they are. I mean, that's kind of weird when you think about that. People were criticizing Luke Combs about stealing Tracy Chapman's thunder, but yet if somebody stole my thunder and I got $1 million, they could have my thunder. You know what I'm saying?
I do know. And to your point about Dolly Parton, real quick, I'll tell you the Governor Parson quote was, quote, "The Dolly Partons of the world could do anything they wanted to. They're financially well off, an icon in the music industry." And then he says she could do anything in the world that she wanted to do, but she really chose to make a difference in some child's life. And I think that's the true flavor of who somebody is. And she did announce when she was there that she's working on a cover song for the teachers union, Brad, about the shortened work week. Did you hear about that?
I don't know. What is this? Working Monday through Thursday? Is that what it is, or something like that?
Working 4, not 5. What a way to make a living. You should see what it's like to have to deal with all these children.
Oh, man. Okay. Number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Brad, yesterday's show was a great example of talking through a lot of boomer angst. That's what we do on the show, Brad. We have a lot of young people that listen that might have boomer parents or Gen X parents. And when boomers are really angsty about reality, like the new work week or the way that things are in the world and arguing against the rules, there's a lot of angst about change. And that's something that we've seen in mid-Missouri all the way over to St. Charles County, Brad, which is over the last week, the Jefferson City News Tribune has had 2 pieces about all the angst involving the election of Bob Onder. Now, if you'll remember, Brad, Bob Onder is going to be the next congressman from Missouri's 3rd Congressional District. He defeated a guy named Kurt Schaefer, and Kurt Schaefer was from mid-Missouri. He's an attorney. And you'll remember, Brad, that the 3rd Congressional District looks like, we'll steal a phrase from our friend Mary Elizabeth Coleman, it looks like a Pac-Man. It looks like it's taking a big bite out of the St. Louis area. And it extends all the way from Lake of the Ozarks all the way over to the Mississippi River, which includes parts of St. Charles County and such. The point, Brad, is that folks in mid-Missouri are having some angst about the fact that for the first time in at least a decade, Blaine Luetkemeyer from St. Elizabeth has been the congressman. So Mid-Missouri has had a congressman for at least 10 years. And Bob Onder is from St. Charles County. And I guess technically now, he lives in Franklin County, right, Brad?
Well, yeah, but he's got to move back into St. Charles County. Isn't that the deal?
Okay, yeah. So you're right about that. But the point is there's a whole lot of angst there. And in fact, the line from the Jefferson City News Tribune was, for the first time in at least a decade, the 3rd Congressional District will have a congressman who's not from Central Missouri. And that rightly causes apprehension for Mid-Missourians who are concerned their representative may not reflect more rural values. Now, what I think, Brad, is that I think Bob Onder will be spending a lot of time in Mid-Missouri. Bob Onder he knows the lay of the land. He knows what people are saying. He knows that people in Mid-Missouri have a lot of angst. I'm sure he'll spend a lot of time there. Yesterday, on Scott Fawn's midweek update, Scott talked about the fact that he was chatting with some people from Mizzou, and that from what Scott heard, Bob Onder has already made a trip to Mizzou, has already talked about getting some resources, what Bob Onder can do in Congress to help Mizzou. So I think it's going to be a really interesting narrative over the next few months. Again, Bob Onder doesn't have any serious opposition. He'll win in a cakewalk. But you'll hear a lot of rumblings from Mid-Missouri, and the pressure will be on Bob to deliver for that part of the state.
I made a mistake. He lives in St. Charles County, but he lives in the wrong part of St. Charles County. Not that there is a wrong part of St. Charles County, but he doesn't live in the district anymore. He used to live in the district he was elected to. He lived in Lake St. Louis for a long time. That's where one of his practices was, and the whole bit.
Yeah.
And then he moved down to essentially, it's not called Augusta anymore. It's called Hoffmanville. He moved down to Hoffmanville, and
I'm surprised we haven't talked about the Hoffmans, Brad. I don't know. I would have thought you would have seeded that with glee.
You sent me that the other day, okay? And
I did.
Let's talk about this in B block. But anyway, so it's what's weird about this isn't this so strange that people are like, and let's even drill down even further, okay? If you live in St. Charles County, there's a lot of people who are upset about what's going on in Cottleville, okay? I don't know if you know all the crazy the crazy stuff in Cottleville. But what's interesting about this is it's localism to the nth degree. So in other words, if you live in St. Charles County, I live in St. Charles County. Yeah, but I live in Cottleville and you live in Weldon Spring, and I have a better place than you because I live in Cottleville. I mean, good old Bob Onder's from Missouri, okay? So, and he lives in a rural area now, in the Augusta area. Like, he doesn't understand what's going on, like, 90 miles to the west of him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't you think that the article is a little bit overblown about the fact, well, he doesn't understand what's going on in mid-Missouri? I mean...
here's what I think this is about, Brett. My first year political science professor, who ended up being my advisor, said, politics is about who gets what and how much. So if you're in mid-Missouri and you've had Blaine Luetkemeyer, who will listen to all your concerns in mid-Missouri and take care of you in terms of appropriations or whatever, just attention. So you have the resource allocation, and then you also have the attention, Brad. And this is something that people don't like to talk about because it makes us uncomfortable. But there's a lot of Republicans and a lot of business people and government types in mid-Missouri who had a great relationship with Blaine Luetkemeyer. And they feel like they probably would have had a great relationship with Kurt Schaefer. They probably knew Kurt Schaefer really well. And then there's this guy from another part of the state who maybe they knew in the state Senate for 8 years, but they don't know that well. And they think, will this Onder guy pay attention to me? Can I get a meeting with him? Can the groups that I lobby for get a meeting with him? So you put a few messages out in the media like, hey, I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to get ignored. And a guy like Bob Onder will pick up the phone or text you and say, hey, I heard you got some concerns, man. Let's talk about it. Let's meet. And then suddenly you build a stronger relationship with the guy.
Well, like you said, the district is such a weird district. What'd you call it? The Pac-Man district? Was that what they call it?
Yeah, that's what MEC called
it. Because of the fact that it does have that weird thing where it has the Pac-Man mouth essentially goes along the north side of St. Charles County, and then it comes down on the south side of St. Charles County?
Yeah, it does. And so that leaves out all of St. Louis City. And, of course, now, the origin of that district, Brad, is because they were going to include the city And Tashara Jones said, "Bite me." So they
that's-
made it look like a Pac-Man. That's the origin of it.
I got it. Okay. And last but not least,
The number one.
Do you remember a hip-hop group from the 90s called Cypress Hill, Brad?
I do.
They had a banger of a song. Well, they had several good songs, but they had "Insane" and "The Membrane." But they also had a song that was like, it was Be Real singing. It was
We ain't going out like that. We ain't going out like that.
"We ain't going out." And they were big cannabis and marijuana advocates, Brad. Speaking of marijuana, you know who's not going out like that?
Let me think. Bob Onder?
Bob Onder's not going out like that. He's a noted pothead. Just kidding. It's for his glaucoma. No, here's who's not going out like that. Jay Ashcroft. We have yet another battle, Brad, that took place yesterday. You'll recall these unregulated hemp products that are causing a big hubbub. You know, the stuff that might be sold at a convenience store or a liquor store. Governor Parson says, hey, we're going to ban this stuff. We're going to get it off the shelves by September 1st. Jay Ashcroft says, no, you're not. Mike Parson resubmits some suggestions and says, okay, here you go. All your concerns are addressed. Let's do it, Jay. Yesterday, Jay says, nope. Guess what, Governor? This stuff is going through the normal process. It does not deserve emergency status. And you know what? This stuff can wait till you're out of office. Thanks for coming out. So another battle in this. If you want a plain language description of what's going on here, go to Scott Fawn's midweek update. I have it up on my website today. I have the timestamps. Scott walks through without using complicated chemistry terms like Delta 8 and whatever. He talks about the gist of what's going on here. Brad, it's clear Jay Ashcroft. Now, by the way, his partisans would say that Jay's just doing the right thing and standing on principle. No matter where you are on this, he ain't going out like that. He's not going to give Governor Parson what he wants. And for the rest of the time that Jay Ashcroft is in public service, Jay is going to do what he wants. And if the governor doesn't like it, too bad.
John, what I don't understand, why does the Secretary of State have any say about this at all? I mean, is that...
They're the ones that implement the rules. They're the ones that are in charge of the rules and regulations in the state of Missouri.
Well, I thought that was the legislature that was in charge of the rules and regulations.
No, they don't make them, but they promulgate the rules. So there's a good description of this. Jack Suntrup from the Post-Dispatch does a good explainer here in the link I have up today about the role that the Secretary of State has in actually advancing these. So
yeah, but once again, wouldn't that be more appropriately handled by the Attorney General? By if this is a law that they're having a little bit of issue with, wouldn't the Attorney General jump into this thing?
I think that's probably the next step, Brad.
Well, somehow, because when you hear the Secretary of State, most of the time you think of, in my world, you think of, in corporations and LLCs and the voting, because he's the dude that's essentially oversees all the elections and things like that. I don't really see him as the guy who when Governor Parson says we're going to enact this law and Jay says no, we're not. It would be like Governor Parson said we're going to enact this law and Dolly Parton says no, you're not. She doesn't have much say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess so. And real quick here before we go to break, we should mention too the loss of a former St. Charles County legislator, Kathie Conway. Do you remember Kathie Conway, Brad?
I do.
Okay, yeah, Kathie passed away over the weekend. She died after a battle with brain cancer.
She wasn't that old, was she?
It was announced on Facebook. Her family put a note up on Tuesday. She was only 69 years old, Brad.
Man, I'll tell you what. It sucks to be 69. I'm telling you, that's what it is. Okay, we have to take a break. Good thing I'm 89. We have to take a break. We'll be right back.
The number one.
I hit the wrong machine. I don't believe I did that. I hit the wrong machine. Okay, now we'll be right back.
It's me, Egbert, once again.
No,
I'm the
won't.
new owner of this station.
John,
I went out and hired
what
the
the hell's
best
going
talk
on?
radio
Hold on a minute.
consultant,
Hold on a minute.
Jeff Allen from
don't
News
want to
Talk
dump
STL, and told.
Okay, third time's the charm. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?